Any ERP system has got an MRP module, the material requirement planning module. So does IcSoft ERP. Let us have a look at what are its components. An MRP system has got to have certain inputs. The first input is sales orders, which is the source of demand. The next source of demand is forecasts, sales forecasts. The third one is bill of materials. Bill of materials is essentially a list of parts and quantities required to make a finished product, which are arranged according to the processes which are involved stage wise in making a product. The next input is inventory or the stocks. And we also have pending orders, both production and purchase orders, as inputs to MRP. Once these inputs are in place, MRP processes these by exploding the demand, which is the sales orders and the forecasts, into its component requirements and raw material requirements using the bill of materials. Then it does what we call as netting. Netting in simple terms is deducting what is already existing, both stocks as well as open orders. So once we deduct those from the demand, we get the net requirements. Next step is modifying the net requirements, uh, which can be used as supply orders. For example, suppliers have minimum order quantities, or manufacturing may have a fixed batch quantity. So the output of the netting process needs to be modified using these quantities. And once this has been done, the output of MRP is a set of time phased production orders or work orders as we call them, and a set of time phased planned purchases. Let us have a look how IcSoft MRP handles each one of these. By the way, these inputs, processes, and outputs are in line with the American Production and Inventory Control Society definition of MRP, or the EPICS definition of MRP. The first input is sales orders and forecasts, the demand. IcSoft MRP can take both of these inputs, and it is an essential and a critical features because the long lead time items have to be planned based on the forecasts, whereas the short lead time items can wait and they can be planned once we have received the confirmed sales orders. So as you can see here, the customer column where the customer is blank are the forecasted requirements, whereas the records with customers are orders. So both of these are processed by IcSoft MRP. Next input is bill of materials. As we can see here, IcSoft has got a multi-level BOM. By multi-level BOM, we mean that the entire product tree from finished goods and then the subproducts and the raw materials can be seen here as a tree diagram. A multi-level BOM as against a flat BOM is a very important feature. The multi-level BOM also consists of the intermediate subproducts or the components which are manufactured as against a flat BOM which has got only the purchased items. Another view of the bill of material which would clarify the concept that the multi-level BOM actually allows planning of the subproducts. So here we can see the subproducts in the bottom grid and the material lines going into those subproducts in the top grid. Effective dates of the BOM is an important feature. In manufacturing companies, engineering changes keep on taking place and the bill of material continuously undergoes change. As and when we plan a change, it comes into effect at some future date and we need to capture that while the current production follows the existing BOM. Effective dates help us in implementing this. We can put these dates from which the new BOM will come into effect and MRP will start uh, exploding it and generating the child part requirements according to the new BOM from the effective date onwards. One of the essential inputs is, of course, inventory. The existing stock on hand is a critical input to MRP, and the detailed stock transaction history with opening balances, receipt issues, and then the closing balances, they form an essential part of the MRP system. Stocks are available in IcSoft location wise, and the inventory balances are actually used by the MRP in the netting process, as we will see in a short while. Planned versus released orders. So, the pending orders, pending purchase orders, are also an input to MRP. We don't want to buy for which already there is an order which is existing. So, which will again be used in the netting process, but it is available as uh, as a set of records in the IcSoft uh, system, and this quantity is processed by MRP in the netting process. Similarly, pending work orders, the same concept. There are always some open work orders when we run the MRP, which could be having a balance or pending quantity. This also needs to be taken into consideration before generating new work orders if we want to avoid duplicate generation of work orders. So once all these inputs are in place, we run the MRP and BOM explosion takes place. The raw material and subproduct requirements are generated and netting comes into picture. But before the BOM explosion take place, first netting of work order happens. What is netting of work order? As we can see here, we have a sales quantity, then we have FG stock, then there are some open orders, and then there is a balance quantity. Here it is zero, but in case the work order quantity and FG stock put together did not cover the sales quantity, we would have got a balance quantity here. And this is something which has to be deducted from the requirement. So, and and once we deduct that, then we get the net FG requirement. Once the net FG requirement has been generated, as we can see in the net quantity column here, that drives the netting of WIP. Net FG requirement explodes and creates the requirements for subproducts and raw materials, where again netting comes into picture. So at the level of subproducts, also if there are open work orders or if there is stock, that gets deducted from the net requirement for the WIP. This is a very important feature, and some MRP systems miss this critical step, especially those which do not have a multi-level BOM. Uh, because unless we do this, the raw material requirements are always calculated incorrectly. So here, using the same principle, we see the net WIP getting calculated, and the net WIP requirements drive the netting of purchases. So explosion of net WIP requirements generate purchase requirements, where two types of netting are occurring. First, stock gets deducted, then pending PO and pending indents, which are already in the system, they also get deducted. And finally, the net purchase requirement is generated. Here you can see the closing stock as negative, which means that there is a net requirement. One important feature of MRP is that it not only tells us that how much to buy, but when to buy it. So here we can see the dates also. There are three dates here. The required date is the date when it is required for production, when it is required on the shop floor. We always like to keep some buffer in hand because there are some administrative delays taking place here and there. So we can define a buffer time. So here it has been defined as 1 day. So we can see the buffer date 1 day prior to the required date. And then there is a planned date. So planned date is the date when, depending on the lead time, when that material has to be planned. So here you can see wherever the lead time is 0, planned date is same as buffer date. But whenever there is a lead time, the planned date is prior to even the buffer date by that much time. And after having done this netting, the net requirement for purchase items are generated in this column. But that's not the end. We need to modify the net requirements because suppliers may have MOQs, minimum order quantities. For example, if the net requirement was 10 and the agreed minimum order quantity with the supplier is 20, we need to generate an order on the supplier for 20. So IcSoft MRP allows to define these order modifiers in the masters.
Order modifiers for work orders also work in a similar fashion. For example, we could have batch quantities which could be either a fixed quantity or which could be above a certain quantity. So these could be defined as batch size here, and the net work order requirements are modified accordingly. This is a very powerful feature as it minimizes the uh, changeovers by defining optimal batch sizes.
The next step is to generate the output. One output of MRP is for purchased items, which is a purchase plan, as we can see here in this column. This purchase plan helps the buyers to buy exactly the quantities which are needed, of course, modified by the order modifiers, as well as when these are required. So, even the dates are given here. The second output is time phased planned production orders. So, production orders or work orders, the work order quantity, work order date, you can see it here. And there is another interesting concept in IcSoft, which is stock orders. Sometimes, if there is idle capacity, the shop floor managers may want to utilize that by creating some stock orders using the available material. However, when the sales order comes in, we don't want to produce extra, and these stock orders have to be generated, or I mean adjusted against the requirement. So we have work order here, and then the sales or stock orders uh, get adjusted in this window, and then we have the final requirement. As you can see, following all the principles of a material requirement planning system, IcSoft MRP generates the requirements for manufactured items as well as the purchased items, following the JIT principles in terms of either buying or producing what is required when it is required. Some uh, inputs here on some of the MRP systems which are available in the market today, and they are actually evolving. So you may find that, for example, the MRP is only order driven and it is not supporting forecast based planning. Or we may find that the BOM is a flat BOM, which means it is not multi-level, it is not supporting uh, the requirement generation and netting of the subproducts. We may find that it is giving us the quantities to be produced, but it is not doing the time phasing considering the lead times or the buffers. So we get to know what to make, how much to make, but when to make or when to buy is not given by the MRP. Or we may find that the order modifiers are missing. So some odd numbers are getting generated from the MRP, but the planners have to modify those in order to satisfy the minimum batch quantities or minimum order quantities. So while evaluating an MRP system, it will be helpful if we pay attention to these small aspects so that MRP runs efficiently. IcSoft MRP is your digital assistant in material planning. If you want to have a live demo, please contact us at sales@itspl.com. Thank you.